You are now entering the Take Up, a place together when the film is over. I'm your host, Joshua Ray, and I'm here with my co-host, the managing editor of thetakeup.com, Mr. Andrew Wyatt. Hello, Mr. Wyatt.
Hello, Josh. I have a confession.
Okay.
I love the blues. What can I say?
That's good. I'm glad you weren't going to come in here singing the praises.
I lied to you. I
Irish
love the
folk
blues.
music.
No, I love that too.
That's Everyman, Andrew Wyatt. And today we are deciding if Ryan Coogler's Sinners is to enter the Take Up's permanent cinema. And then we will have one more thing. All right, so we've talked about a few Best Picture nominations here on, 2 weeks away from the big show.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, I know, right? It's like this year is going to be next year, and then the next will be next, and it just keeps happening.
The Oscars always throws me a little bit off because how they talk about them is they attach the year that the Oscar happens, the
Yes,
ceremony
this
happens, but they're really talking about last year's movie. So that's always been super confusing to me.
This is the 2026 Oscars that we were talking about. We've covered Best Pictures, One Battle After Another, Secret Agent. Best Pictures?
Best
Like,
Picture.
I already called it Best Pictures. Whatever. We've done a few. Last episode, we did Frankenstein. What knockers? I can't believe we didn't think to talk about Young Frankenstein.
Not one Young Frankenstein quote in that
No.
entire hour. It's really shameful.
No, but I would love to have a Roland Zehe with Sinners. I guess.
No, good. I love it.
Yeah. Ryan Coogler's Sinners. It's like it's a battle between Sinners and One Battle After Another, I think, for Best Picture.
Do we
And then
think?
we'll have one more, and we're gonna go ham on Marty Supreme, which I'm excited. Have you seen it yet?
No, I've got it in my back pocket for I have to watch it in the next 2 weeks, right? So
It is burning a hole in your back pocket
yeah.
with a cigarette and a stack of cash. Anyway, so Sinners is a huge cultural moment. I don't love it as much as everyone else, which we will get into, but it is such a cultural moment. And in the text of the film itself, like I'm talking about what the film is doing, not anything outside of it. I think it's so smart and so kind of uplifting in changing the narratives of Black characters and Black people at the time that the story takes place. Andrew, will you give us kind of a setup of what's going on in Sinners? At least get us to the party.
Well, let's back up. I actually want to back up a little bit. Did you see this theatrically?
I did.
And did you see it in IMAX?
I did not.
Okay.
I did not. And when you watch it at home now, the digital versions incorporate the IMAX footage in its original scope. So it switches from this extra wide, like 276 frame, to like one. It's not even. Is it 185? Well, it's 185 at home. I don't know how it filled the IMAX screen, but those images are just. This movie looks fucking immaculate.
Yeah, I watched it at home as well. I missed sort of the theatrical experience last year, but I was able to watch it at home.
Seeing it in the crowd who are
I missed
unaware, I
that.
mean, you did miss a thing about it, but its effect is apparently clear on film alone.
And you're right that it does look spectacular at home. So we have this is a period film set in the 1930s, right?
Yeah, it's tail end of Prohibition.
Tail end of Prohibition. Our main characters are twin brothers, Stack and Smoke, who are sort of like Mississippi Delta boys who went north, somehow got themselves inserted into the Chicago outfit and made a killing up there. They're not being entirely truthful about how exactly they made a killing. Spoiler alert, they made it by stealing from everybody around them and have relocated back home to Mississippi to basically establish a juke joint, to establish a business for themselves using those ill-gotten gains. and they're kind of there's kind of this aura of like prodigal sons coming home. When they show up, everybody's like, "Oh my god, they're back." And they're dressed nicely and they're throwing a lot of money around and they've got all these supplies. And I think one of the things that's sort of remarkable about this film right out of the gate is how it compresses time really spectacularly well without sort of wearing on the realism factor. Like, it is a very realistic film in some ways before the undead monsters show up, but it it's moving so slickly, it's moving so smoothly through the events of really just one day and one night that we barely notice that it is only one day and one night. The
It feels
setup is so
epic.
elegant. Yeah, epic is a great word.
It feels really epic, not only because you're meeting the community among them, Sammy, who's really kind of a if if anyone is the protagonist, I guess it's him because he sort of frames the story. It's his
It's
character does the change. He's like he's it's through the lens of Sammy, played
yeah,
by
and
Miles Canton, who is an amazing find.
yeah, and I would say that maybe it's a very ensemble heavy film. I mean, it's hard to draw the eye when you've got 2, count 'em 2, Michael B. Jordan's sort of in the star role, right? But
Yeah,
he does have such a great arc, and I'd say that maybe more than protagonist, he's the point of view character. He's our
sure.
insert. The whole movie sort of takes place in flashback, right? It sort of begins at dawn, and then we flash back to the previous 24 hours, basically. Um, but there's a fly in the ointment, a rotting undead fly in this like celebration that the brothers that Smoker Stack are trying to create. And that fly in the ointment is the lurking vampire who's out there in this community and is approaching, unbeknownst to the characters, he's approaching this sort of like one night of abandon and sin that they're going to have at this juke joint. He's sort of out there, and we get these cutaways to like so that it's not a complete surprise when he shows up. Um, it's where to begin with this film? There's so much going on in this movie. The texture of this film, that's the word I keep coming back to when I was writing my notes was texture. This is a film of just incredible density, both in
Yeah.
terms of its art direction and production design and historical research that went into it, but also just in terms of everything that Coogler is trying to juggle thematically and emotionally within this story.
Yeah, I mean, what you can discern if you haven't seen this film, from what Andrew's distilling through the plot is that this film takes on shades of many different genres. There's a gangster picture genre. There's, of course, a horror element that comes in late in the picture, and then there's also
Romance.
yeah, there's a romance. It's also a proper musical. There are
Yes.
musical numbers in it, and I think to me, when I think about Sinners, I do think of it as a story of culture through music.
I was thinking about our discussion from a few weeks ago about Suspiria 2018 and about how one thing that film does so effectively is present dance as a spell work, right?
Mhm.
It's treating that, I mean, it's not even a metaphor. It's literally dance is being used as a ritual. And in the same way, like, this is not subtle. This is in the intro, like, the voiceover intro to Sinners gives us this theme right out of the gate, that music is itself a kind of time and space collapsing spell work. It's ritual magic in its way, and it crosses time, space, culture, all kinds of distances are being bridged through that spell work for good and for ill. The spell work is agnostic. It can do good things, it can do bad things. It can have nasty side effects like drawing the attention of things that you don't want.
Well, I think it does a really great job of tracing the history of Black music and American culture, um, and really saying that American culture is Black music.
Mhm.
And what ends up happening is you get, the origins of rhythm and blues, but in what's probably the scene of 2025, or at least one of them, in which my jaw dropped to the floor in the wild, um, experimental, like collapsing of time. The film gives like a kind of the opening narration gets repeated in the middle of this sequence that does actually collapse all the history of popular Black music. And I think about how that is sold to the masses, the white masses, as insidious. And what the actual insidious nature of the vampires music is the fucking corny white music in it. And I like the collapsing of those cultures as or the music of those cultures is representative of what they're bringing. And if anything, this film, like, I mean, you can kind of pick apart what I'm about to say, but equates whiteness to vampirism in a really smart and interesting and most importantly, feeling way that I definitely appreciate. And I think the music certainly is even played for a joke at one point
Mhm,
when we kind of get this huge musical number that it brings in like funk and hip hop and hardcore
mhm,
rap and soul and dance and all of this kind of great celebration of non-white music because we also have Asian Americans coming in and
mm,
bringing their Chinese heritage
mhm,
and just the complete collapse and celebration of that. It's utterly levitating, and then you, you get to them at the door with their corny ass white music. And look, I know there's some people who are like, but Josh, I like that music, and Andrew, maybe you like that music.
I like that music.
It's still good music. Like, it has to be good in order
I
to kind of
I do
draw
want
you in,
No, I
right?
do wanna push back on that a little bit because I think Coogler if you read what Coogler has talked about and the place of the Irish in this film and what they represent and his great affection for Irish music and Irish American heritage, I don't think it comes necessarily off as corny. What it comes off as something because it's the vampires that are performing it, right? It comes off as something that might have some spiritual kinship in the abstract, but there's this element of insidiousness to it. There's this element of perversion that's what is this how is this being music being used? It's being used to drive a wedge through the door so that these people can get inside.
Well, then that's the thesis too.
Right.
And the same way that whiteness and white culture takes over via vampires, they begin taking over the other cultures too, and the other cultural representatives. So they end up working their way through the party and taking on black members as vampires. It's
Mm,
and that it's Irish characters is really important too because
mm,
they had such a tough time also coming over to this country, and
mhm.
they're another maligned class of people. And the complications of the implications there are really interesting.
Yeah,
Um,
my wife and I were talking about Mary's role in the plot, and, um, I said it wasn't it's not an accident, right, that Mary's the only sort of white passing person in the juke joint, but she's also the first one turned. I don't
right?
think that's an accident, like,
No,
we
not
get
at all.
we get a little bit of backstory there, we get the impression that maybe she's from, the life she's leading now is a little bit more, prosperous than the life that she used to have. She's married up, she's married white,
She's married
but
into a rich white family.
yeah. So, but it's not a mistake that she's the first one to be turned, right? Once she leaves the sort of protective barrier.
And this is Stack's old flame, as played by Haley Steinfeld,
Mm.
making a, I don't know if she's been absent to my eyes, making a welcome return, as opposed to Smokes, played by Wunmi Masaku.
Oh, yeah.
To me, she's this movie. Like, that is such a movie star and such a movie star, like, announcement of a movie star that
I
I
I first noticed her in the horror film His House from a few years ago,
Oh my
and
god!
when I saw her in that, and she's not even the main I think she's like the secondary,
Mhm,
she's not even the lead
mhm.
role, but when I saw her in that, I was like, "Ooh, that lady's gonna be a
And
star someday."
she's in Lovecraft Lovecraft Country
Yeah,
too?
and she's been in some Marvel stuff too, TV shows and whatnot,
Missed me with
um,
that.
but she's yeah, I mean, so that's the other thing that Haley was doing, right? That she's in the Hawkeye show. I think that was
She
her big
is?
yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
See, there's this whole, like, part of culture that I'm good.
Marvel Marvel
Yeah.
world. Um, no, but, like and again, I think one of it's a little difficult to grapple with as a critic because on the one hand, the metaphors are so thuddingly obvious, but on the other hand, Coogler handles everything with such elegance and such, um this is I mean, this is a guy who has made his Marvel film. He's worked within that blockbuster mode. He made his art a couple art films. He went on to sort of franchise filmmaking with Creed, right? Then hit it really big with Black Panther and its sequel, and
But
now he
doesn't
can
this
write his
feel like
check.
the perfect synthesis of all the things he's been working on?
Right.
He's been making these very kind of popular films and increasingly so,
Mhm.
and comes to the most popular of all, one that came like a fucking lightning bolt into our culture, Black Panther, and I think if there's a Marvel film that is actually a film, it's probably that one. Um, even though,
I like this better than Black Panther. I think
I like
this
this better
is
than Black Panther too, marginally. I like a lot of the things that are happening in Black Panther are, to your point, probably less representative, less metaphorical, kind of less like, yeah, I get it. But when it happens here, it because he's working through a kind of history of genre in film too, I he they take on a kind of like import where other filmmakers might have an import that doesn't make them important. Like he's able to actually frame this story as a story of individuals and like his ideas of what's happening in this culture in a way that I think is graceful, even though obvious. And it's okay for them to be obvious because half of your audience is probably not gonna clue into this very quickly.
and I think part of it is just the freedom frankly, it's the freedom from moving beyond Marvel because as impressive as Black Panther is, there's always that sense of, um, secondary the object itself is secondary to the franchise, right?
Yeah,
To
yeah,
the
exactly.
larger obligations, and I think and also just the superhero-ness of it all. I that 3rd act is always a
Well,
little I've always
less so
stumbled on
for
a
me.
little
The
bit.
3rd act in Black Panther is yeah,
Yeah,
it kinda gets to atrocious places,
but
but you're right.
I think part of what makes Sinners work so well is that it can exist within that blockbuster kind of continuum, even though it's not a franchise. It's a different kind of franchise. It's a franchise within the folkloric and pop cultural idea of the vampire, which is itself like I don't want to get pretentious here, but you can say that all vampire films are a franchise, right? Every vampire film is part of the franchise. The franchise is the vampire subgenre, and they're all reflecting and refracting on each other. And I think that's part of what makes Sinners so satisfying is that it feels like a film. This film couldn't exist without the previous 100+ years of vampire films because it's using
Very
that
true.
genre, it's using that 100 years of generic history so smartly in how it's deploying it.
I think it I think it uses everything around vampirism or the vampire genre, I'll
Mhm.
say, smartly. But the shorthand of us understanding like the garlic, the stake in the heart, like all of that's kind of deployed with really quickly. I mean, we get that really fun scene of them, them, the thing test scene where they're
Yeah.
eating the garlic. But for me, once this film shifts into proper siege film
Mhm.
territory, it starts to fail. Not fail, it gets less interesting, and I think maybe it's just kind of the storytelling feels a little bit more rushed, more clunky to me, um, up until really Jack O'Connell's character is very gloriously and beautifully dispensed with, and then the coda I'll call the coda because it feels like the vampire dying is going to be the climax, but the actual end points to
There's
It's
so many
Ryan.
in this movie. There's so many endings in this movie. It's
Yeah,
like
well,
Return of the King
yeah,
all over again.
and I think that speaks to some of the what I love so much about the first half is how elegant the compression of time is, what you were talking about, how
Mhm.
elegant and economic the storytelling
The
is.
character work being
It's
done with so little. I mean, it's not a non-talky movie, but we learn so much about this huge ensemble so quickly in that first hour. It's great.
yeah,
And I do wanna agree. I mean, I don't mind the siege part, I think, but one place I wanna agree with you is that I think the first hour, the party planning part of this movie, in a weird way, is the
yeah,
best part of this movie.
me too. Up
It
until
just
that point, I
sings.
was like, "Wow, this is next level stuff from Coogler," and it really is. It just feels like the rest of it is kind of John Carpenter's vampires.
Not a
A film
kind
I like,
comparison.
a
No.
film I really like, but what I'm saying is it felt as if it's been done before, and when he does get to what I think putting a fine point to his story and tracing what the roots of evil in the
Mhm.
white men in this story and the that scene, the actual end of this film, another masterclass to me. And not only because it's like fist pumping, like you know, what you want to see him do is mow down the KKK, and he does so very gloriously on his own. It's kind of a John Woo action scene because it.
Well,
I don't know that it makes
It's Hitler and Inglourious Basterds or yeah,
yes,
yeah,
it's
right.
all of these things. It's like, how do you get rid of all the baddies? And he is so smartly doing it. And but the way Kugler constructs that ending, I think, matches the kind of gracefulness and musicality of the first half. There is a kind of uh, masterclass in filmmaking and editing in that first hour
Mm.
that, you know, by what he's set up is like we're setting up for the party, right?
Mhm.
And then he's got that huge set piece in the middle of the party. And then it's kind of like, okay, we're in a party, you know, for a while. But I think that the final
A
section really
great
that.
party, a
Yeah.
sweaty,
And
awesome party.
I'm not saying it's bad, it's just what came before it had just really lifted me up, you know, so
Well,
much that I
it's
kind
that
of
anticipation energy. I mean, I don't
yeah.
remember if we've talked about it on the pod before, but I know you and I were both big fans of Steve McQueen's, Lovers Rock,
Oh my
and
god.
I as much as woozy and as great as, like, the dance scenes in that movies, but the parts that stick with me after a few late years later after that film premiered, it was part of the Small Axe series, right, on
Yep.
Amazon. Um, like, this early scenes of, like, the aunties in the kitchen making the curry and the guys unloading the amps, like, the tingle of anticipation is a big part of what makes a party film work, and I think this movie
Yeah.
is, like, masterful level, like, party film anticipation. The first hour works so well, because of that, because we've got that tingle of, "Ooh, this something fun is going to happen." Even if we've seen the trailers and we know it's gonna all end in blood, there is that, like, in the moment, we're sort of along with these characters and we're anticipating the fun that's gonna be coming.
I'm really so glad you brought up Lovers Rock because even in that, the party is transcendent.
Mhm.
I mean, that is kind of like a perfect hour-long film, and if you haven't seen it, I guess go to Amazon Prime if you have to. Oh, no, go buy that Criterion box set. Go
Yeah,
support
great film.
some real people. Um, but yeah. You really got me understanding that it's probably like the little chess pieces of the party moving around that are not as interesting to me. Um, I get it.
But
Yeah.
we're laying so much groundwork for the character beats that are gonna happen later. We're giving again, as in as much as the vampire stuff does feel a little bit left field, we get these glimpses of Jack O'Connell's character earlier on. He doesn't completely, like, save him. He doesn't make it a left field genre twist, right? He gives us a little bit of those vampires earlier on. So great to see Lola Kirk after so many years since Gone Girl and Mistress America. Loved seeing her in
My
this.
Mistress America, my
Yeah,
girl. Yes, and she's
but we get
really good and really funny in this too.
and nasty.
And
Uh,
really fucking nasty. Yeah.
um, but we get so much of that, we know that's coming, but it doesn't detract from sort of the house party tingle of what's going to happen, us making the viewers excited about the party as much as the characters are, which I think is part of the energy that makes this film so special.
And it is all of these very special people you've been introduced to.
Mhm,
Delroy Lindo's first scene is so incredible. Haley Steinfeld's first scene is so good. A I mean, among all of them is, Wunmi's, that scene. It's like the sexiest fucking thing. And like filled with such melancholy and excitement too.
mhm,
That little mini movie where Smoke and I forget her character name, meet up
mhm.
in her shack where she's selling her medicines and spells and things that it's just such a beautifully done.
Annie's his wife. I guess they don't say that they ever divorced, right? Like, they were married and that he just ran off, is my
I
impression?
guess. I did not pick up that they were married,
Okay.
but
But
either
they
way,
were together. They had a
yes.
child.
They
Um,
they transcend the a marriage license. Whatever they have going on
it's rural
is most
Mississippi.
beautiful.
It's whatever it is, whatever. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
but, like, the way that they dribble in those details about her, sort of ritual practice, and they're setting up what's gonna come later. I was
Yeah, but it
interested.
still feels like that it feels so real for that
Oh, yeah,
character.
yeah.
Yeah,
Everything.
but it doesn't feel like, "Okay, now we have someone who can give us shorthand later."
Yeah.
Actually, I hadn't even thought of it that way. It works so naturally.
Well, it's important to, I mean, like, again, I think Coogler's smart enough as a screenwriter to work within genre conventions and but also twist them a little bit and make them his own. He's thinking, okay, all vampire films have somebody who's a little more on the up and up on the lore than the other characters. But
Mhm.
of course, one of the fascinating things about this movie is it's taking place at at a time when the vampire has already pervaded the pop cultural consciousness.
Or
We
is
don't
about to,
we
really,
don't
with
see
Dracula, right?
Right, I think this might be a little bit after Todd Browning's
It
version of
could be.
Dracula, but
Yeah.
even before that, we had films, that established, like, between the literature and the films, the pop culture consciousness was already there. So I always think it's interesting how once Annie figures out that, "Oh, these are vampires, these aren't some other kind of ghost or spirit or demon, this is a vampire." She gives the characters a little bit of info about, like, okay, we need to stake them, we need to use silver, we need to use sunlight and so forth.
Mhm.
But this is not deep hoodoo lore. This is something you could have learned by watching Todd Browning's Dracula.
Yeah,
That's the
yeah.
marvel of it.
It kinda supposes that they're in the same universe then, right?
Right.
Because they're not aware of even though okay, so I did look it
It's
up,
the
it's
Walking Dead problem.
1932.
It's the
It's
Walking Dead
nine
problem, yeah.
yeah, it's 1932, so Dracula is probably playing locally, released in 1931, so
As much as a movie this is a movie that is in conversation with cinematic history, I don't think we get a shot of, like, a movie marquee in that little town or anything. It's too small, right? It's too
no,
much of a
no.
podunk, right?
No, and there's, he's using a lot of generic or of genre, shorthand throughout. I mean, the the gangster picture that's so popular at the time. I wish we had, Katie Carter here to give us a little pre-code talk and Sinners because I feel like there's a lot of that happening here, a lot of referencing, um, but
And the way
all
that both Annie and Mary slowly tumble to the fact that Stack and Smoke have robbed their former employees. Like,
yeah.
they both independently come to the same conclusion, "You assholes stole from the mob, didn't you?"
Well, we should talk about what Michael B. Jordan is doing in this movie and why it's kind of miraculous. He's one of our great actors, one of our great movie stars.
Well, what was your first introduction to Michael B. Jordan? Were you a Wire fan?
No, it had to have been Friday Night Lights. I think I watched the first
Oh.
season, but I didn't really follow through on that. So then it would have been by the time he's coming up with Coogler
Mhm.
and Fruitvale Station.
I love that movie. That still might be my favorite Coogler film, his
Really?
first. Yeah. I
Huh.
love that movie.
Um, but I've
As
fallen
hard as it is to watch.
it's very hard to watch, but it is there are there are some tricky shorthand things in that I don't love.
Mhm.
I don't love the dog.
I haven't
And
revisited it since it was the original release,
that's
but
what's
I
that's
absolutely
what
adore
sticks
it.
in my mind is
Mm.
a dog being a little too, metaphorical, used in a metaphorical way that I did not, appreciate. But I think the metaphors here are quite a bit more refined than there.
But the twin thing I think is great because, I think when in our Zodiac discussion just a few weeks ago, I talked about how, one of my favorite Jake Gyllenhaal performances is in, Denis Villeneuve's Enemy, where
Mhm,
he's playing 2 not twins, but 2 characters who are basically doubles, and part of what makes that film and I think you can transpose this to Sinners as well, to Jordan's performance in Sinners, is that he's not playing them as exact opposites or reflections. He's playing them
mm-mm,
as subtly different shaded characters that scan as distinct characters, even though they're not like cartoonishly opposite. And Smoke and Stack, you know, costuming aside for how we
mhm.
get we use the color and the coding to tell them apart. Um, Jordan's doing something very similar and very equally fantastic in this, and giving us two slightly different performances of two distinct characters without making them sort of cartoonishly, these are the yin and yang of this pairing.
I love the scene where Stack has finally turned and is tries to attack but runs outside,
Mhm,
and then you get these reverse shots at the door of Smoke and Stack
mhm.
outside, and Stack has the vampire light in his
Yeah,
eyes,
the
and
pinpricks of evil in his eyes.
but you can also see those pinpricks of evil in Smoke's eyes, just smaller, and everyone in just falling out of the background. No one else has them, but
Mhm.
he's got them in his eyes too. So it's kind of the idea of fighting against all of this. And when I talk about all of this, I'm talking about the vampirism and what that represents. It's so beautifully done.
That's a great, call, I hadn't even noticed that, but of course, that makes sense with it is heart-wrenching it is for characters to be sort of on this vampire turn to vampire versus not turn to vampire divide, for people like Grace and her husband, Beau, for people like, that characters and their lovers are separated by that doorway, right? However briefly for a time. Friends, lovers, family members, but there's something particularly twisted about identical twins,
Mhm.
one being turned and one not being
The
turned, and
mirror,
being on the
yeah.
opposite sides of that door. That like not being twins ourselves, we can't ever really know just how deeply upsetting that must be for those
We
characters.
should ask, past and future guest Steven what that's like, how he experienced Sinners as a twin.
So I sat down because I was curious about the question of the folklore versus pop cultural traditions of vampirism.
Yes, take me
I
through it.
I wanted to what remind myself as somebody who is a huge vampire fan, and I had exactly 3. I don't remember if I talked about this in the Lost Boys episode. I had 3 movie posters on my wall in college. They were the Herzog Nosferatu, Lost Boys, and Bram Stoker's Dracula. If that tells you anything about what 20-year-old Andrew was like in terms of his taste.
What
But I
now?
had to refresh
What
myself. I'm like, what comes from actual European folklore and what comes from the movies and theater and novels. So, it was a little surprising actually. The garlic, folklore. Staking, folklore. The invitation to enter, folklore. The immortality, folklore, although part of what's interesting about the history of how the vampire was perceived is how the development of Christianity and its theological attitudes towards immortality changed, sort of had a feedback loop with the vampire myth.
Oh, wow.
Not folklore, and seems to be entirely originating with things like, Polidori's Vampire, the novel Camilla, and of course Dracula, and then their subsequent film and theatrical adaptations. The sunlight destroying vampires is not a folkloric thing. They generally were active at night, but there was no idea that this like, the touch of the sun would burn them to cinder is a sort of modern pop cultural invention. The fangs as well, like, there's not a lot of stuff about fangs in vampire folklore, and the idea that the vampirism is a kind of contagion that, like, one vampire can create legions of vampires which sort of multiply exponentially as they turn others. The idea that this whole town was sort of turned overnight, um, that seems to be a pop cultural invention as well.
I'm really glad Well, thank you for that lesson
That's
because
my history lesson for the
that's
night, yeah.
yeah, I love that. Because you bring up the night of it all and what feels both safe and kind of dangerous for these what feels safe for these people is for them to gather in their own home, meaning this establishment is for them. We have this whole the discussion of whether or not they are invited in, the vampires, is about their whiteness.
Mhm.
And they might seem cool, but if someone steps on someone's toes, we don't know what the fuck's about to go down in here. And it's a
Right.
really interesting way of twisting that to his ends in this film, but that they have their own place. And what we end up finding out is that it's really all a setup to eliminate this black population,
Mhm.
and by these Klan members who swear that the Klan is not existent. Like, this film could not be more pertinent.
S Smoke and Stack maybe could have been a little more less credulous when, like, the white guy allows these 2 like, money or not, it
Yeah,
seems weird that he allowed them to swoop in and purchase this property
yeah,
without nary, an objection.
right. Yeah,
Um,
even though it's not, it doesn't seem like prime real estate necessarily, so there's some credibility in the story there, but yeah, probably.
they probably should have
Um,
thought about it more than 5 minutes it
yeah,
takes to, like, hey, sometimes waving money around in Jim Crow, Mississippi is not enough to make all problems go away, it turns out.
and it might be more of a problem, but the the idea that this is a safe place for them
Mhm.
and that it's their own space, but then it's completely torn asunder because of night, and it's not until daytime happens that there's complete clarity.
Right.
So I love the kind of visual representation of that is so
And
perfect,
it's
and it's so ideal to the kind of this kind of vampire story.
yeah, and, like, we talk about, the phrase "safe space" has been so mocked and regurgitated in the culture wars, but the again, I just come back to how smart and how, like, "Ooh, I wish I had thought of that." Using the cultural safe space defined by the boundary of the juke joint to define a literal ritual magic, both a ritual magic space, right? You can't do a ritual until you draw a circle, a proverbial circle, right?
Right.
You need to, the magic happens inside here. It's bound, it binds the magic. But also from in the vampire lore, of course, the safe space is protected against the vampires.
Mhm.
Like using, as you were saying, using that invitation mechanic that comes from folklore as a way, as an entry point to talk about black cultural spaces, the invasion of whiteness into those spaces and the perversion of them is just such a smart move. It's the kind of thing, you wish you can understand why the screenwriting credits in particular are getting a lot of attention. It's like sort of the one sure thing for Coogler is the screenwriting awards because it's you wish you were so many writers are wishing they had made that sort of leap and that he
Mhm,
made.
mhm. Well, not quite everyone is as smart as Ryan Coogler as it seems, and assembling such a key team. I know his composer is someone he went to college with. What
Mhm.
Lord Vorgerstein? I'm
Okay, let's be
sorry.
respectful.
I'm
Let's
sorry.
be
Yeah, let's
respectful.
be respectful of an Oscar
Let's look
winner
at
with, Ludwig Göransson. I
Mhm.
wasn't that far off, Andrew. Um, and yeah, I mean, I've got all the cinematography by Adam Durald Akpa. It, that it's a conversation that I think we've had, and how the history of cinematography is based almost entirely on white skin. And this film, I've so my one more thing is going to piggyback on this
Oh, okay.
particular conversation. Um, but just the striking amount of color they're able to gain from this nighttime, with the majority of the film taking place at night, and the play with light and shadows, it's kind of miraculous. And for it to be a big budget Hollywood film that doesn't look drained of color. Now I'm just sounding like an old man, you know.
No, I'm looking up, so the cinematographer, Autumn, Arkapaw, she, She was also a Gia Coppola collaborator. She also lends Palo Alto and The Last Showgirl. I didn't realize that.
Oh, Last Showgirl, a film that looks better than it should. It's an okay movie, but it does look really great. She's particularly good, like, I'm assuming she's particularly good with film, and this is shot on film, and it definitely looks like it's shot on film. It's great that the 2 big movies that we're having about this, the framework we're using, the Best Picture
Mhm.
nominees for 2026 are both shot on film and
And
primarily in IMAX, and one exclusively in IMAX. Yeah.
but to get back to your point, yeah, like, everybody in this movie looks so good,
Mhm.
regardless of their skin tones, regardless of the lighting conditions, whether it's inside or outside. It's just it's a beautiful looking film, that flatters every actor in it, which is not
Mhm.
something we can always say about black actors, particularly when they're not being shot by when they're being shot by white filmmakers, don't always look great. Uh, but, like, I think about Lovers Rock and how, like, the sweaty bodies in that juke
Mhm.
joint, whether we're in that sort of surrealistic, magical scene or not, like, just it's a sexy movie, right? Like, everybody looks
Really
great
sexy
in this
movie, yeah.
movie. Yeah.
Yeah. But it is really cathartic to see Jack O'Connell burst into flames.
But,
I
okay,
like him enough. I
but
like
to
him
get back to
enough.
your earlier point,
Yeah,
the marvel, as you say, is that that's not the real catharsis in a
right.
weird way, that the real catharsis comes later when, um is it Smoke? Yeah.
Smoke.
The quote unquote survivor who doesn't actually end up surviving. But as you were saying, the way that he executes that plan with this kind of like almost supernatural calm and confidence, knowing exactly what he's doing, and knowing that it's probably is going to be his last stand, but determined to take out as many of these crackers as possible.
It's so
Well,
great to see how this film has been recognized by the industry too.
mhm,
And we can get into a whole thing about Oscars and, you know, usually it's one type of performance, um, 2 types that are really the same thing. It's, the housemaid or the slave. And
mhm,
in this, you have 3 nominated acting performances. You've got one who's playing 2 gangsters, one who's playing a guitar player, a musician,
mhm.
and another one who's just a business owner. It's like it's so beautifully done, but, their blackness is, of course, a part of the story too, and it goes to show that there are many more stories to be told, and there
Even
are
during a
many
period
ways to tell
and I
them.
think, like, the clapback is always, well, in modern day, black characters can be anything. But, black characters can be anything in a period piece too. In a Jim Crow
Exactly.
period piece, they can be
Like,
anything.
you only wanna tell slave narratives. It's
Yeah.
clear to me. You only wanna recognize slave narratives, and
Mhm.
it takes a black man with power and powerful black cast and creators around him to be able to tell something like this, but, we knew he had the power early on, and he's worked really hard, and I'm very happy for Ryan Coogler.
And I don't like to get too sort of meta about it, but, the deal that he cut for the rights to this film, the, like, completely unprecedented
No, go
deal
meta. What do you mean?
that he gets the rights back to this film from Warner Brothers,
Yeah.
that's crazy, but it just shows how muscular his position is, and how much cachet he has right now that he could I mean, he didn't even know that the film was gonna be I mean, he probably knew that he was gonna be successful, but neither he certainly the suits at Warner Brothers, right, had
It's
no idea the
it's a bit of a
scale of the hit
gambit.
they had on, right?
Yeah, spending this much money on and, he was still he didn't have unlimited money,
No,
but
but
it's
it
an
feels like a
original film,
It feels like a forward-thinking play the
yeah,
same way, George Lucas getting a piece of the merchandising action was sort of a forward-thinking play. So, but and it
yeah,
makes and it's say what you will about how that what that result was on the film industry, but it does make me think about, like, what what Coogler achieved in terms of deal making for this film. What is that gonna presage for how the film industry is gonna change? I hope for the better. Um
Well, Andrew,
Mhm.
having said all that, I think it's time we decide if Sinners is going to enter the Take Ups canon. I am going to vote no,
Hmm.
because I do just catch on the middle section of the film, and I look at
The
the kind of
vampire violence.
the roster, well, not even that. It's more the, like, erratic, heavy metalness of it, I guess. Um, I do like that heavy metal music section.
Coogler's a Metallica fan. Did you
Yeah,
know that?
it's the score is pretty great once that starts kicking off. I just think there's some inelegance in the middle bits of it. I am
Hmm.
going to it's not a if we're talking about a personal canon, it's not my personal canon. What do
I'm all
you think?
conflicted about it because I really want a vampire movie in here, and this would
Okay.
be a good choice. I don't know.
If I have
I'm gonna
other
say that
vampire movies that I like, if we're gonna do that, I have
we'll do some vampire movies in October. I'm gonna say
I
no
would
just
actually
because
if
I
I'm
like Fruitvale
going
Station more.
if I'm going we're talking about Coogler,
Mm,
I think I would put Black Panther in over this because
really?
to me, this isn't like the ultimate vampire movie
Mhm,
or movie about black music or movie about a gangster movie. It's a lot of
mm.
those things. But Black Panther might be the ultimate Marvel movie.
Yeah, I could see what you're saying there. The things about that I like about Black Panther are so anti-Marvel, though. Like, the
Yeah,
Afrofuturism of it all
yeah.
is just
Well,
sort of
exactly.
so beguiling. Um,
That's why it's the best.
yeah, I feel a little bad about doing it because I'm so enthusiastic about this film, but my instinct is to say no just because I prefer Fruitvale Station, as a Coogler film, qua Coogler film, but, I don't know. I'm sort of conflicted about this. Let me put it this way. I'm not gonna vote for this for our canon, but if this wins Best Picture, I am not gonna be mad in the same way that I wasn't mad when Return of the King won Best Picture,
I
if
think
that
I
makes sense.
understand
Like,
that.
my genre soul will never be
I
mad when, like, a great achievement in genre filmmaking breaks out and clinches that kind of cultural cachet in, like, mainstream cultural cachet. I'm never mad about it. So, like, if this film beats One Battle, even though I prefer One Battle as a film, I'm not gonna be mad about it.
can you give me the off the cuff, off the dome,
Mhm.
2 or 3 Andrew Vampire picks that might make it in?
Ooh. Ooh, let me think about that.
I would the first thing that comes to mind is, another black vampire picture, Ganjan Hess, by Bill
Yeah.
Gunn, who made, like, 3 perfect films, and, do I have other Only Lovers Left Alive,
Mhm.
which is the platonic ideal of a Jim Jarmusch film.
Mhm.
I think that's my 2. I think I only have 2. I don't know, there's probably more.
I am going to I mean, off the top of my head, I think Bram Stoker I love Coppola's version. I think it's a terrible Dracula adaptation, but maybe a masterpiece of cinema. Does that make sense?
It is a wild fucking looking movie.
I am
Have you seen it
also
on a big screen? Did you see it when it originally came out?
oh, yeah, I saw that when it originally came out.
If
1992, was it? Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
The 4K looks great too, if you haven't seen it. The horror of Dracula, I feel like a Hammer film needs to be in the mix, and Horror of Dracula is probably the best of the bunch, in my opinion. Um, I do go back to Browning's though. It's so hard to divorce our minds from because so much of vampirism is rooted in Browning's version of Dracula, but it's so good. Every time I revisit it, it's so good. Lugosi is so magnetic. The stuff with Renfield in the Browning version is like maybe my favorite version of Renfield. He's
Those
so
2 performances make
yeah,
that film for me. I find
yeah.
that film, a lot of it kinda boring, to be honest.
Mm.
A lot of it just production design, but those 2 performances really worked for
I
me.
mean, we were just talking about Del Toro. Blade 2 is pretty fucking awesome.
Yeah, guess we're still talking about him.
I don't know. I mean, I kind of view for vampire because vampire films contain multitudes, right? it depends
Mm.
on what do you want in a vampire film. I could probably like if tell me why you're interested in a vampire film and what you're in the mood for, and I can probably pluck something out of the air to fill that.
And
I
I
mean, I
feel like
love that we were
I'm
just talking before the show, we were talking about Eggers' version of Nosferatu, which I absolutely adore too, so I don't know.
all right,
Recency bias, I
bloodsuckers.
guess. Yeah.
Yeah, we will, move on and think about after all those things, we'll have one more thing. All right. So I did tease that my one more thing was it had to do with Sinners in a way.
Mhm.
It is a single YouTube video by the creator Slide Bean. I am unaware of them. It was recommended to me. It is called The Biggest Mistake in Hollywood History. And it is
Wait, spell this for me.
Slide,
Mhm.
Slide, Bean, Bean.
Okay.
The Biggest Mistake in Hollywood History. It's about 30 minutes long, and I'm going to kind of qualify that that it mostly focuses on the past 25 years of filmmaking, but in technological advances that happened then. But what within this 30-minute video, what he does is talk about the workflow process of editing and mass producing film and making copies of film. Specifically, his investigation started into why there was color banding in his quote unquote 4K version streaming Blade Runner 2049, a film we both love, um, in 4K. And color banding is where you have a field of orange in a gradient and you might see separation within that gradient.
Mhm. Posterization, I would call it, is the phrase I hear. Yeah.
But within that banding, he's like, this is 4K and Dolby Vision. I don't understand why I'm getting this. So he's really exploring the workflow process, why the past 20 years of filmmaking, a lot of films that are coming out in 4K editions are actually just upreses of 2K scans. There's a lot of nerdy stuff that I've kind of like been aware of, but he puts it in a really concise way with really great examples. And ultimately, it is a plea or a suggestion to people to, if for your home viewing, to remain in physical media and stick with your 4K discs if you have great television, and just to realize what you're paying for. But I think it's also a really interesting guide into how technology and the introduction of the computer in a what is an analog film editing process and the post processing of creating duplicates for distribution, what that is, how that's changed, and how there are a few filmmakers who have actually reverted back to that, like Christopher Nolan, Paul Thomas Anderson, and creating duplicates for distribution.
Mhm.
He's definitely a YouTube content creator, so that comes,
I love a nerdy technical discussion though.
and it's
As mu
great
in as
because
much as I
it's
often feel like I don't know enough about that aspect of filmmaking.
well, that's the thing is that he all of these kind of ideas that I've like heard about, read about in ways that are in technical ways that are beyond me.
Mhm.
He does it with excellent infographics, excellently explaining it. And it really made me understand that when I went to HBO Max on Amazon, because they have HDR, they use HDR, they don't use Dolby Vision.
Mhm.
I paid an extra $6 to go to Apple so that I could see this in Dolby Vision, and it made a huge difference because this is a dark film with dark color subjects, dark
Mhm.
color subjects, and it really made such a difference in being able to get the detail out of the shadows, the detail out of the light. It
Mhm.
made such a huge difference in the way that this post processing of ultra high def is working. So, it really kind of blew my mind for like a fun little 30-minute video. But so that's The Biggest Mistake in the History of Hollywood by Sly Bean on YouTube. But you can find me on what I don't know, Letterboxd, Instagram, and at the Take Up STL. And Andrew, what is your one more thing?
So I was in a horror movie mood thanks to prepping for Sinners.
Are aren't we always? I mean,
Yeah, we pretty much.
always I paused the 1993 film Ticks
Ooh,
to come record with this.
oh my god, that is not a good movie.
Well, I'm having a good time. Anyway,
The,
sorry.
so I revisited pretty much apropos of nothing other than maybe thinking about Sinners and thinking about siege movies, maybe siege horror films, maybe. Um, I revisited John Carpenter's Prince of Darkness, and if you know anything about the Take Up, you know that our sort of Mountain Rushmore of horror filmmakers, John Carpenter is up there.
Yes.
Um, I hadn't seen this movie since I was a kid, since I had seen it on like video. I rented it on video or
Whoa.
somehow convinced my dad to rent it. And I didn't have a real strong memories of the plot, like, other than I had memories of the premise, and I had memories of images that had sort of drilled into my young brain and stuck with me, probably traumatizing me. Um, but I certainly hadn't watched it as an adult, hadn't sort of reassessed it in the context of everything that Carpenter has done since then and before that. And that movie slaps.
It
Uh,
fucking rules. It's sorry, not to interrupt you, but to
yeah.
interrupt you.
Mhm.
I like that you said it was your favorite after Halloween. Do you mean post Halloween or Halloween is your favorite?
No, so I didn't mean film actually when I said that. I meant score. This is my
Uh,
second favorite John Carpenter score after the original
eh,
Halloween,
sorry, I missed.
although his rearrangement for the otherwise, completely useless David Gordon Green Halloween film, I also think is a strong contender for some of his best, score work of all time. But Prince of Darkness is completely, is up there as well, and it's pretty much it has more unlike Halloween, I think it has more motifs in it, which I think is interesting. It's a more complex score, more textured score. I'm not enough of a musical theorist to explain it better than that, but, the movie itself is just incredible. I can't think of any other films that really try to, like, split the difference between faith and science in a non-condescending way,
Yeah,
the way that, this film does, without ever really neglecting the kind of creepshow shit that Carpenter does so well. Having, like, semi-possessed, maybe mind-controlled homeless people gathering around this, like, church in near Skid Row in Los Angeles, like, it's a very California film in a way that, I found sort of refreshing because Halloween, of course, is trying so hard to not be California and be
what do
Illinois.
you mean? It's Illinois. It's had
Yeah, it's Illinois in the autumn, not
palm
Pasadena in the summer. What are you
yeah,
talking about?
definitely no palm trees. Definitely none.
Um,
You didn't see that.
but, like, just it's a cool movie. It's gross in all the great ways. It has some absolutely haunting shots. I don't know why, but, like, the repeated video image, the message from the future with that figure in the doorway, that's as weird and as
The
gross, like,
demonic angel. It's
VFX shit is in this movie.
uh-huh.
That was the image that stayed in my mind from when I was a
Yeah.
kid, is that grainy video footage of I mean, there's something meta going on there, right? Like,
Mhm.
video footage being beamed back from the future to prevent an apocalypse, and it's a horror movie, right? Um,
You know
anyway, I
what
don't wanna say
I
too much.
love
I don't wanna
about
say
Prince of Darkness?
what?
It it is in some ways he remade The Thing, he's pseudo remake of Rio Bravo. In some ways, it is his most Hawksian because for the first 40 minutes, it's people doing their jobs, and I just wanna watch people doing their jobs. I just
Lot of
love it. People hanging out.
multidisciplinary scientists. We don't get to see that too often. Where like usually it's like scientists are sort of grouped together generically. Oh, these are the scientists, and their individual fields of expertise aren't even talked about. But I love that texture early in the
Yeah,
first act
the
where
interplay is
they're
just
meeting each other for the first time. Like, okay, who's the engineer here? Who's the biologist? Who's the
yeah,
chemist? Who's the
yeah.
translator? Oh, hi, how you doing? Like that aspect to it, and the structurally the escalating tension. Um, I guess maybe the other thing is that Coogler has talked about the influence of Carpenter, not just his horror films, but his action films as well, and his great, sense of structure and his great sense of pacing, and how big of an influence that was on him for Sinners as well.
I think I wrote about it for the, Take Up or formerly, I don't know, do we have the Carpenter piece on the checkout?
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
okay,
It's on
cool.
there. It's still a
Um,
it's still a popular piece.
yay. But it's a film that also, even though it's like, all these multidisciplinary science questions
Mm,
and then leaders of faith and
mm,
scholars of faith in a room, like, trying to think about what the fuck is going on right now. It's a
mm,
film that, because of the music, because of the filmmaking, it feels so incredibly urgent, and
mm.
it's so urgent that the titles have to, like, sneak in, and the titles are, uh,
Yeah.
spread out through the first 10 minutes of the film until you get to directed by John Carpenter, while it's like, "No, the story is so important that it's so urgent that we can't help it."
And I think that is maybe the core of what makes the Carpenter of it all so beguiling is that it is both a film of great urgency and tension and escalating anxiety, but at the same time, it somehow also makes space for a bunch of people sitting around kind of bullshitting semi-coherent shit about religion and faith and
Yeah, yeah.
science. Though that like the dorm room philosophizing can coexist with the constantly sense that we're building towards something terrible and dark. Um, the fact that those sort of mingle together is feels like a very Carpenter touch. Anyway, great film. I watched it. I just rented it on Amazon for a couple bucks or whatever. I don't know where it's actually actively streaming, but it's pretty much available everywhere.
There is
Great
a
film.
beautiful 4K UHD
Ooh.
edition from Shout Factory
Oh, shout. Yeah. Good job.
as to, tie it all up in a bow.
Physical media, folks.
Physical media.
I needed I needed to watch Prince of Darkness right then and there, so I had to turn to what I had to turn with. But if you like the movie, buy the
Well,
disc, damn it.
come and knock on my door next time, partner. And speaking of which, on our next episode, we are going to have a guest who is a physical media champion. Not just a champion, he's actually just announced a distribution label. That's Ryan Verrill. I know him from the Disconnected podcast, Instagram, all over. Um, I I knew, well, I won't, never mind. I won't get into all that because I'll get into that with Ryan. He's a Missouri native, but we are going to be talking about physical media because I'm going to pick his brain. And you know what? You can skip those parts, audience. If you don't like it, it's fine. But I need to talk to him about a few things. But the film that he's picked couldn't be more different from what we've been talking about. That's Charlotte Wells' After Sun. It's
So
bad
excited to
dad
talk about
time. Bad
so
dad time.
excited to talk about this movie
I'm excited
and
to
how hard it
revisit
makes me
it.
cry.
Oh god, are you gonna cry? I don't wanna cry. I don't wanna
Wait,
cry.
is the man who loves women's weepies shaming the straight guy about crying at After
I'm
Sun?
not no, that wasn't shamey. I don't wanna cry. I don't feel like crying. No, I will cry. Anyway, so that's Ryan from The Disconnected will be with us with After Sun next week. And until then, thank you to Ethan Tarantella, the silent in the shadows, Ethan Tarantella. He's looking at me like he wants to kill me. For producing and editing the show, and Kayla McCullough for help with social media. Theme music by AMP. And until next time, we're under pressure. Doom, 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 doom. Doom, 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 doom.